All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this workshop in ICM Induction into Biosecurity and Biodiversity. Welcome, Patrick and your team here to do a presentation today. So I open the floor, open up to you, Patrick, to move on with your presentation and introduce your team.
Brilliant. Okay. Is Greg coming?
No idea.
All right.
You're the boss today.
Okay, fine.
Until he turns up.
Right. Yeah. Okay, Greg was just going to give us an introduction, but I'll do it. Hey, look, the purpose of this workshop is to give you guys an overview of the biodiversity and biosecurity programs, including hopefully some of the stuff that you guys have been talking to in some of the other workshops. So we've gathered what we can and brought it into this forum. This is kind of the flow of it. But like I said to Robbie a bit earlier, like pretty flexible model here, so we should have a bit of time for questions and whatnot. So we've got two kind of broad presentations. We've got biodiversity side and then the biosecurity side, even though they are linked, but we've separated them out. And we've got an interactive session in the middle, which Amy will run. So, here's Greg. Introduce you, Greg. We've got Amy Lendrum beside me. Amy runs our Kauri program. Darian Ebling runs our pest plant program, and Amy's in Darian's team. We've got Brett Bailey, who runs terrestrial pest animals, marine and freshwater. And then we've got some of our friends in the containers that we'll introduce a bit later. They're better than staff because you don't have to pay them. Yeah. Okay, so I wanted to start the workshop with kind of a bit of a conceptual, bit of a high level view of how we see the biodiversity and biosecurity programs sitting in council. We've worked really hard over the last 10 years to ensure that we work really well between directorates. I know it's a little bit oversimplified, but it is actually how we work. And as an example, the pest management lead for it sits in ICM, but we have support from other directorates. It helps us play to our strengths. So policy people do policy work, operational people do operational work. As an example, SPY, so they've been leading the biodiversity strategy work. So the workshop you had with Judy Van Rossum, but my team have all been jumping in behind here, going to workshops and helping out. So it works well. Hopefully the colouring isn't a complete surprise because we've used it through the 2021 and 2024 LTPs, as well as we use it when we in our reporting as well. So the 24-25 biodiversity annual report was run kind of under these headings, and we'll do the same this year. So we'll use the colouring as we work through the slides to just show you where the programs sit. But before we start, I'll hand it back to Greg to see if he wants to frame it up. But we also wanted to just go around the table quickly and make sure that if there's any issues or things that you've got in your front of mind that you've been thinking about before coming to this workshop, we'll write it up on the whiteboard so that we can make sure we cover it off, and we'll circle back at the end.
Thanks, Patrick. And I guess a couple of things to add to the intro. So this is one of a series of inductions that we're doing for yourselves, business that we're going to take across ICM. Piece of work that we're doing at the moment, though, is also looking to integrate this into the work that we do as we lead into the LTP, to understand the ICM business, understand the activities that we undertake, why we do what we do, and help you to get an understanding of the business as we go on the process. So what we'll be looking to do is we do have an infrastructure induction happening later on in May as well, and I'm looking to bring together everything for either a meeting or a workshop in June at this stage, to really bring it all together and help with that more holistic conversation around the business that ICM does. that's really all I can add. So it sounds like Patrick's introduced, but yeah, as he did say, we really want to get an idea of what questions are on your mind as we look at the topic. It's a really important part of our business. It's a really important part of what we do as a community for the community as well. And so interested in what you're hearing from either your constituents or also yourselves. Questions you want us to try and answer for you today. So we can move on. We'll pause and throw out your ideas.
Well, I'd like to know what we're doing about getting rid of koi carp, Greg.
Jesus Christ.
Slap him, will you, bro? Well, it's one of our biggest issues we've got to deal with. So,
do the other guests in the room, and the plastic boxes, have names?
Yes. Gary.
Same as Chris. Pretty
Turn your
much.
light off.
Yeah, just to see what progress is being made and what's being planned.
That's all good. And look, we'll
Mine is making sure that everything we do is in the most cost-effective manner. And it was clear yesterday when we went out to Manatau Tree, that there's real pressure on all organisations how to alter their business to get extra income from biodiversity credits and other things, and how to even how the regional council can actually get claim some of those biodiversity credits in the future, or other ways of funding so we can do more in the space. So that would be my question, that which is a pretty big one. Just different forms of funding and and making sure every dollar is spent in the most wise place.
Well, thanks everyone, and so we'll keep those in mind as we go through the workshop, and we'll come back to them in the end, what we've resolved versus what we may need to bring to future meetings. That's very helpful. Thanks everyone. I'll pass back to Patrick.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, I guess, unfortunately, Natasha Granger's come down sick today. She was at the last ICMC meeting, so I'll do my best to channel my inner Natasha, and we'll see how we go. All right, so biodiversity program. Now, I guess I'm going to provide an overview, but I've got to. I'm trying to cover off the council's biodiversity program as well. So we're trying to, again, not be siloed. So I'll do my best to touch on some of the other programs and answer questions. But like Greg said, look, it's the ongoing relationship. If we don't cover it off today, we can bring it back at any other time. So. Okay. Starting with a little bit of legislative context, the legislative playing ground for biodiversity is really complex. It's multi-layered, and biodiversity kind of features in a whole heap of legislation. A lot of regulatory documents and strategic documents. But we have highlighted the top ones, I guess the most relevant documents for our council on this slide. Important to note that local government will continue to have a key role in managing biodiversity on private land when the new environmental bill comes into force. So it's not, the framework's kind of changing, but not really. In 2024, the Waikato Biodiversity Accord was developed in conjunction with territorial authorities, iwi, DOC, QE2 and MPI. Now this accord established commitment to work together to develop the regional biodiversity strategy. And you recently, I think it was on the 9th of April, had a bit of a workshop on it, and you'll be receiving a paper to formally go through it at the Stratton Poll Committee on the 6th of May. Strategy provides a region-wide framework to bring together biodiversity work that we have already got underway in a coordinated, long-term and partnership-based approach. So as I think Judy said on the day, it's all about alignment. So that's kind of the wider framework that we work within. I'll now touch on some of the operational work that happens in ICM. And the work we do is around delivering restoration with others, and there are two parts to that. One is site-based, so where we have our special places, and the other is around partnerships or working with community groups. So taking a look at our site-based programs, we break it into three broad areas. One is our priority biodiversity sites. The next is Coast Care program and the Shallow Lakes program. I'm going to just touch on these really quickly. Give a couple of examples of each one. Okay, so Coast Care, it's been operating since 1993, so a long time. We work at approximately 30 beaches in partnership with community groups and others to restore not only the biodiversity at those sites, but the resilience of those ecosystems. We take a lead on the West Coast, but and that's quite different to how we work on Thames Coromandel, where they take the lead. We support them. They have a very large Coast Care budget compared to ours. Thames Coromandel District Council. But as I mentioned, Coast Care is not just about site restoration. It has a strong community focus, and we couldn't deliver any of these programs without the community support. We've helped drive awareness, behavioural change within their local communities. This is a series of photos from Pawanui as a bit of a case study to show the nature-based solutions in action. You can see that the dune was reshaped in 2022, then planted, and has held up to a large number of weather events post that. And I understand that it's held up pretty well over the summer as well. So it's a real win for the community there. It's pretty stark when you look at that first photo on the top left. There was nothing, there was no dune there at all. Okay. So the next thing I want to have a look at is the Priority Sites program, where we provide funding and technical support for individual landowners. The percentage of contribution will depend on the biodiversity values at each site, the size of it, whether they've got any other funding or whatnot. We support pest control, weed control, fencing, some restoration planting and activities. And it's all across the region. So I think at the moment we're working on 39 sites, covering about 14,500 hectares. Numerous case studies we could have chosen, but this one's pretty cool. So this is a site that's received both biosecurity and biodiversity funding. It's a project that we have with Tūniti Kaitiaki Ropu on the Otahu River near Whangmata. Our relationship started with this area with our priority possum control program, and then it branched out into the wilding pine program, and now we've got our biodiversity staff involved, and it's led to a new project looking at the salt marsh habitat. The Ropu remove lots of weeds and involving their kids in it, which is kind of cool. So it has a real longevity to the program. I told you I was going to skip pretty quickly. So now having a look at our Shallow Lakes program. So I think Natasha touched on this at the last ICMC meetings, but like the priority sites, we provide financial support and technical advice, but I guess what's different in this is that the sheer number of players or partners we have at each of the lakes. To try and corral this, we've got two long-standing agreements between Fish and Game, Department of Conservation, iwi, ourselves, and district councils to work on a large number of peat lakes throughout the Waikato. Some of you will know that we also published a book last year that Natasha is the lead writer for. Inside this is our lake level program. And again, it's a long-standing program designed to maintain lake levels in our unique peat lakes that are really vulnerable to drying out. And it supports our regional plan, so it's kind of a must-do program. Really cool case study that we wanted to highlight was there's Natasha's book, Labour of Love. Okay, so case study we wanted to focus on was Lake Maratoto. It's 18-hectare lake just past on State Highway 3, just past Hamilton Airport turnoff. If you're heading to Te Awamutu, you can't see it from the road, but it's really special. It has a really large buffer, and a big chunk of that's in QE2. It also has a lake weir, and on this slide, I think you can see we've been trialling a whole lot of different shaped weirs to maximise water retention and fish passage over the last few years. Last year, we were fortunate to receive WRA funding to further support a project we've been developing with the landowner, Ngāti Hawa Mahi Trust, Ngāti Hawa Iwi Trust, who will be undertaking the weed control of planting as well as some of the survey and monitoring in the lake. We've been, as I mentioned, we've been working with QE2 for a long time, and the bottom slide on the right is the current QE2 covenant, but we're looking to extend that next year or so. The River Authority have matched our funding and the landowners as well, so it's a pretty big program. And that's just one of of a lot of lake programs. It's who, sorry? Like, sure. Don't think so. This is on the right-hand side going south.
Can I just ask a question?
You go first.
One of the things that stands out in those, you go back to your earlier photos, colour of the water is that deep blue, like spring water, and the same in Maratoto. You can go back another one, please. Back. Yeah, that water is, you know, it's whether you've doctored the colours, you photoshopped it, or because that you know, that's outstanding. That's an example of what the waters used to be like, and I'm incredible that in so that's in the Waipawa Lakes area. Is that correct or not?
It's Taharonga, isn't it?
Anyway, I
that's
was just
Taharonga.
highlighting the colour of water, and also Maratoto, the water. That lake used to be quite discoloured years ago, and it's obviously been cleared with that planting. So yeah, works of certainly
Yeah, the
delivered
lake,
some good
yeah,
results.
the watercolour in these lakes are really dark. It's been tannin stained, so they're actually almost black.
So
Some of them.
I'm talking about the blue. No, that's a sign of purity of clear water. So is that genuine? It hasn't been photoshopped?
Well, different lake, I think. So these ones are black, like the water's almost black because of the peat stain.
Right. Yeah.
So the tannin stains.
So that's not true to life then. That's I guess that's what
No,
I'm trying to ask.
like a peat lake will always be, it'll be a tea colour.
Yeah, that's
Basically, it's tea.
Yeah.
And it's transparent
one's
if
not a
it's,
tea colour.
if the bottom isn't been stirred, but it'll be a tea colour. You can see you can see the bottom, but some you can't.
It's a different colour.
Yeah.
Remember, that's
Well, it's always been the
It'll
same
be the
around my
reflection
peat
of
farm.
that is.
that's the reflection of the sky.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Thank you.
Cool. So moving on to our partnership program, which includes the Natural Heritage Partnership funding, which is our contestable funds. So what are we doing? So we provide leadership, and as an example of this is the Collective Impact Initiative, which I'm really excited about. It aims to harness the collective effort and power of to maximum gain. WRC provides advice and support as well as advocacy, education and training for a whole wide range of community groups. So I'm gonna touch on the funding programs and then have a look at Kiti Taio, which is an exciting new platform we're developing with community, help them with their planning and reporting. Okay, so the Natural Heritage Partnership Program, it's funded through our Natural Heritage Targeted Rate and guided by our Natural Heritage Partnership funding policy, which was approved by Stratton Poll Committee during the last triennium. We've got 3 funds. We've got the Natural Heritage Fund. We've got the Environmental Initiatives Fund and the Small Scale Initiatives Fund. I guess we've got it in different colours, so just drawing your attention to it. The Natural Heritage Fund, because the next ICMC meeting will be on the 29th of May, where guys will be allocating funding for the funding round that's just closed.
Yeah, Garrett, did you have a question?
And we'll cover off a little bit more of the policy in detail at the front end of that meeting, so we won't cover it off today. Quick case study we've chosen is the Kaitiaki Charitable Trust. It was established in 2018 to work with young people to increase their self-esteem and social connections to nature, as well as teaching them environmental knowledge and improving their job prospects. It started, like a lot of these groups, started with our smaller fund, the Small Scale Initiatives Fund, and it's developed into a pretty cool environmental initiatives funded project. Pretty simple program. They construct traps in their workshop near Hamilton, and then they are deployed across 5,500 hectares of farmland in northern Putiora between Otaronga and Tokoroa. It's a really cool initiative. It's been going for almost a decade, and it's been really great that this council's been able to support a trust that does some really groundwork. So on to Kiti Taio. So through the Collective Impact Project, we heard that one of the biggest needs of groups was they needed something to help them track their projects and help them with their reporting. So we've developed a spatial tool to help them do this. It's progressing really well, and they are saying to us that it will significantly reduce their admin burden and help us to be able to report on their outputs and outcomes far more efficiently. It's all manual at the moment. It will enable community groups to work. The community groups work to be seen, to show how they are working together to achieve landscape scale biodiversity outcomes. Something we just simply cannot do at the moment. I'm not going to walk you through the whole system because I think you'll all leave, but what we're doing is we're testing the system with the 4 biggest and most well-established groups, and they're also linking to some of these smaller groups. This is just an example of some of the mapping and graphing capability that Kiti Taio bring. Beauty of it is that it can capture trapping data, planting data, weed control, and it is really good mapping capability that will help community groups within their reporting. They're really excited about it. They've already told their friends in other regions they want it. We've got district councils across the country wanting to use this. It's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, it's got massive capability, really easy to use. And in my view, that's kind of, that speaks to our regional leadership role. We're working behind the scenes, and we're working to remove the barriers that they have so they can deliver more for this region.
Chris, you got a question to that?
Yeah, I've got friends who have been running a program, self-funding, in Tamaheri, the gully that runs to the left of the highway going through, this big gully going through there. They've caught over 10,000 pests in the last 5 years, I think it is.
Yeah.
Now, I understood they were recording that data in a database which is run by somebody around the region. I know they are. So are we duplicating that? Is this something in addition to what other people are doing?
Good question. So I'm pretty sure you'll be talking about Trap NZ, which is a tool that all the community groups use to capture their trap data and kill data. Actually, as a regional sector, we own that.
So why are we duplicating?
No, we're not. It links behind the scenes, so the data you put into Trap NZ will automatically upload into the system, so it's complementary.
So why is it not showing? Because Kelly tells me they've caught over 10,000 pests. I'm trying to get them nominated for an award because this is all self-funded, self-initiated.
So we've only just developed this, and we've been testing it with 4 groups, and we're moving towards the implementation phase where we'll roll it out.
Find out where she's putting a record at the moment, because I know they're recording it somewhere.
Yeah, they'll be recording it in Trap NZ.
Okay.
Yep, and it links behind the scenes, so it's complementary.
So should I be encouraging them to get some funding from?
They get funded from the district council.
Mike, got a question?
Oh, not a question. I'd just like to congratulate the team on this, because I think there's a huge amount of stuff, as Chris alluded to, that group, that's the true results aren't shown anywhere because they're either a collaboration or they're doing it on their own. So I think this is a great tool to showcase it.
Please don't get me wrong, I do too. What I want to make sure is that it's not duplication of effort and duplication of systems.
Absolutely.
We need one database that captures a whole lot. Then you know what's happening.
Well, the beauty of these systems is actually you can have a Trap NZ, but they talk behind the scenes, so you end up with a seamless series of systems that does it. Yeah, it's really exciting, and it's great that the team are out there and actually solving real problems for the community groups.
Or Ben?
Just on that, are you selling the new add-on, or are you giving it away, or how's it going to be promoted out?
So we're still working on the implementation plan together with Trust Waikato. So they're helping us with this quite a lot, which is great. So they've been helping us fund it. Yeah, so we're working out how to roll it out. We don't just want to land it on everyone. We want to make sure that we do it in a staged way so that we don't get swamped by, end up being a technical support team and whatnot, but roll it out systematic way. But people they're really wanting to crack into it, which is great.
Is it something that will come up in the long-term plan? Does it need funding or not?
No. Also, that's the operational program. I'm just going to dip into a couple of programs that sit outside of ICM. I think there was a couple of questions on this in the Biodiversity Strategy Workshop. So the council has a comprehensive monitoring program. It's the one I'm going to focus on today. It's a tier 1 program. It's quite new, so it was funded through the 2024 LTP. So tier 1, what does it mean? It was a national standard. It aligns to the Department of Conservation and Ministry for the Environment's work. It provides data at sites at a set grid across the region for us to be able to report on the state of biodiversity across the region. 385 sites, 290 on private land, 124 in non-forested areas, 80 on forested, and 75 of the sites land on Department of Conservation land, and they do that work. We just make sure that we're doing it at the same time. So this will, over time, as we run through monitoring cycles, will allow us to have better data on what the state of our biodiversity is. And the last slide we have on biodiversity is, I just thought it'd be useful to mention in bio schools. Empowers students to take action for the environment through connecting to nature and learning through practical projects. Over 170 Waikato schools in the Enviro School program, co-funded by Waikato Regional Council and the 11 territorial authorities. The photos in the slide are taken from a recent event at the Pukotokoto Shorebird Centre at Miranda. Over 100 kids from 10 different schools attended, and it was a joint event with Department of Conservation. So really cool, a lot of reach. Okay, so that's the whistle-stop tour of the biodiversity program. I know there's been a few questions inside it, but happy to questions.
Gary, you had your question?
Yeah, what progress has been made on koi carp? Because without tackling the koi carp thing, I see a lot of this lake work has been done. You go through the North Waikato and you see the brown lakes, permanently brown now, that used to go the colour of what Chris said before. And that's just lines up with the population going exponential. So what is being done? What is being planned? What is the talk?
So hand over to Greg for this one.
I'll start that conversation. So I know it's been a topic that we've covered a couple of times, and probably as part of different conversations as well. So it's very clear it's something important that we need to dive into as a council. We're in the process of bringing together, I guess, a discussion paper for council to consider where to from here with koi. I know that we discussed the koi matter, I think it was at the last ICMC, and gave you a bit of a brief history about where we've been and where we've come from with koi management. So from a biosecurity point of view, hopefully that gave you an idea of why we are where we are now. It's certainly a challenging test with very limited tools to actually achieve effective outcomes. But yeah, as I said, it's a matter that's been brought to, that's been prepared at the moment. And I can't remember which workshop. I think Tracy had mentioned there was some interest in a different workshop as well. So it's a combination of bringing something back to council.
Is that including lobbying government for legislation change on the ability for other options to happen, to like commercializing, processing and sale of koi, which would make it a cost neutral?
So that's not a particular case that we've raised. I think the thing to keep in mind is that there's a real tension between pest management and commercialization of species. There's no.
It will include that.
Sorry?
It will include that. No, we are. It's a shame Natasha's not here. She actually wrote the book on how to manage pest fish as well. So but next time.
Gary?
So there's probably nothing we can cover today that won't be covered in more depth at that session.
I'd like to back up and follow up because I think our pest management around water and water bodies is actually very poor. You know, we look at your graphs and that, which is great. It's all about band stuff, rats, mice, stoats, and everything else. But we've got major issues with our waterways, and we appear to be anyway keep targeting the same things. You know, phosphorus, nitrate, and sediment runoff and everything else. But and I suppose if we keep doing the same thing, keep getting the same results, you know, it's a definition of stupidity. And you know, I believe we've got bigger problems with our waterways and water quality, and koi is one of them, and birds and that are the other issues. So, you know, I think if we're going to be serious around water quality in our lakes and our rivers and wetland areas, you know, we need to, I suppose, and I haven't seen anything today, but maybe you are doing it, broadening what we are doing around biosecurity, around all those pest management, so, and to broaden it out, because I suppose I've come here, I want to see a different result. I don't believe I'm going to see it. We're doing the same thing, just trying to do the same thing better.
Yeah, I guess hold on to that question because we'll cover it, see where we get to with the biosecurity presentation.
Ian?
mine's probably biosecurity, but it follows on from you. It's just something to raise with you. With birds in the water and the effluent they create, whether fish and game, if they are making money from doing that, are liable for that effluent.
So we're starting to, so I guess there's two parts of the workshop. One is the biodiversity program, one is the biosecurity program. And so we'll round up questions around biodiversity and then we can move into biosecurity, see how we go with the questions that you have and focus on that later down the track.
Okay.
Move on to the next part.
Yeah. So we're going to break this into two bits because rather than sit down the whole time, which I'm sure, you know, we all like doing, but it'd be nice to not sit down the whole time. Amy is going to talk about Kauri, and inside this is a bit of, we're going to do a bit of getting up and you get to have a play with our VR. So I'll hand it over to Amy and then we'll get into a bit more generic biosecurity program.
Got it, thanks, Patrick. Kia ora, thank you. So I guess with the first slide, I just wanted to go right back to the basics in terms of Cody disease. So Cody dieback, as it was known, we don't use the term anymore, was first reported on Aotea, Great Barrier, way back in 1972, but it wasn't until 2014 that the first Waikato detection in Whitianga and Whangapoa. Not sure how aware everyone is, but the disease is actually caused by Phytophthora agthodicida. It's a microscopic pathogen. You can see that's what the picture is in the bottom corner. You can only see it under the microscope. It lives in the soil. Phytophthora actually means plant destroyer in Latin. And what it does, it infects the Cody through its roots, effectively starving the tree. So it stops the tree's ability to get food and water, and there's no cure. So it's spread through the movement of infected dirt, things like humans, vehicles, equipment, and feral animals. And at the very basis of our program is our number one goal is to stop that movement of infected dirt around Cody. And we do that through a variety of work streams. So, like I said, we work across a huge variety of work streams in the Cody program. We have community advocacy and partnerships, highly successful schools education program, which is in conjunction with EnviroSchools that Patrick referred to already. We're building our industry advocacy capability. We work with landowners to fence off Cody stands and keep those vectors out, so stock and other feral animals. We are implementing plant pass nursery programs, so helping nurseries to improve their biosecurity practices. And then we take a regional leadership role in terms of surveillance and monitoring, and we also support animal control programs around the region through DOCS. One of a good case study for the Cody program is the development of our virtual reality program. So it was launched back in 2022 and it's been a really highly successful initiative for the program. It's something that's given both the Cody program and Waikato Regional Council a significant amount of recognition across all agencies and across the region. So I think the best thing to do is play this video. It says it all really. This was developed for our award entry into the Local Government Awards. So we were actually nominated as a finalist in 2 awards for that, the Digital Excellence Award and the People's Choice Award. We did miss out, but we did actually come home with another award. So it was the Dave Galloway Award for Innovation. So.
Last term's councillors were around when that was being developed.
So that's all right. That's all right. There's a really cool soundtrack and all sorts. That's all right. So it was a really collaborative. Oh yeah. Okay.
Amy, just while we're waiting for that. Oh.
Karakia has 3 parts to it. First part is the Whakamutunga, doing the traditional story of Kodi and are linked in Te Ao Māori. Users get to spend time exploring an ancient forest and learning about the abundance of native plants and creatures that live within it. The second part of the experience, Moho Nei, is an interactive game where users have to clean all the dirt off giant pairs of shoes. This part was designed to generate behaviour change and give users a virtual version of what we want them to do in the real world. The final part of Kodi Po Kaitiaki is Raurangi, or Journey into the Future. This allows the user to go on a journey through a healthy, thriving Kodi forest of the future, enabling them to see that the future of magnificent Kodi is entirely possible if we all do our bit to protect Kodi. Virtual reality as a technology is highly engaging and has allowed us to spread conservation messages in a really positive way.
These big giant whale spirits came up beside me and led the waka.
It was very realistic. It made you really realise what we need to protect, you know, for Aotearoa. It was really important to us to ensure that everything in the experience was both culturally and ecologically correct. And we brought in experts to help us with this. We wanted it to be a really collaborative process to ensure that it would have broad appeal. And we have been able to share it with multiple agencies, really maximising funding across the entire Kodi Lands region.
Wow.
Amazing.
Never ever done virtual sort of stuff before, so but no, it's a cool experience.
It has been really wonderful to watch the reactions of people who get to experience Kodi Po Kaitiaki. We have had 7-year-olds and 70-year-olds give it a go. We've had people laugh and we've even had people cry. It has enabled us to have many Kodi protection conversations with many people young and old. It has definitely helped people understand that even as individuals, they have a role to play and that their actions matter. So, like I say, it has been really successful for us, both for us as a council, but also across the program, because what we didn't intend, but what has happened is it's actually been shared and it has allowed all sorts of collaborative relationships across all the other agencies. So DOCO are using it, Auckland Council have taken it up, Northern Regional Council, Bay Plain Regional Council, and Te Kini Kodi as well, not to mention many mana whenua groups as well. So great recognition for Waikato Regional Council. I think where it was unique was the gamification of environmental education wasn't something that had been done before, and doing it in a way that was fun and engaged people in a positive way has actually allowed us to have all sorts of conversations which we never would have been able to have before, and those conversations are positive and people go away wanting to do something rather than feeling like there's nothing that they can do. So we've got it here as well. So if anyone hasn't given it a try, we've got it all set up in the next room and we'd love you to come and give it a try when you're ready.
Gary. I'll just have a question. Let me just quickly, the what's causing it? Is it a pathogen or bacteria, or what was it again?
Microscopic organism. It's actually fungus-like.
It's a fungus, and so then is that fungus in all soil? Like, is it in our pasture land as well that can be transported there, or is it just unique in the bush?
So there's Phytophthora. There's lots and lots of Phytophthora. Phytophthora agathodicida is only been found to infect Kodi. We don't know exactly where it is. We only know where it is where we've tested where there's symptomatic Kodi, but we believe that it's been brought in old forestry equipment. So primarily that those are the locations where you find the infection sites. So pasture, not.
Is there any treatment cure for Phytophthora?
Phytophthora agathodicida specifically.
Yes.
So there's a lot of research at the moment around phosphite as a treatment, so similar to what's used in the kiwi fruit industry. So Phosphate has shown some really good results in the trials, and that's what's being used at the moment. So yes, it's not a treatment or a cure, but it has been shown to give the tree that's injected with it sort of like an immune support boost to get it through a few more years.
Then
Yeah.
after you've been sneaked in before you.
Good, thanks. How bad are pigs as far as spreading this?
Pigs are a vector, a significant vector.
We've managed to keep humans out predominantly in the areas that the problem, and it's now pigs that are the issue, or not?
So humans still remain the number one vector because humans can be in a north infected forest in the morning and get in a car and drive to a forest in the Coromandel, get out and walk around and have dirty boots and spread the pathogens. So humans still remain the biggest vector.
Okay, because I know farmers who like farming pigs, so they're not necessarily interested in having them killed. So, secondly, currently, where are you at in terms of the success of the program, and how long do you have the program? Is it a lifetime program? Is it 5 years? What's the next steps?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a lifetime program, but it really depends on the research that, comes out, whether, we get some more tools in our tool. But yeah, it's going to be permanent behaviour change would be great, so that, teach people to behave the right way and then reduce that risk of people spreading soil around would be a massive step forward.
I mean, is the carry dieback increasing or decreasing at the moment?
So Cody, the pathogen lives in the soil and can live in the soil for years and years and years. Whether or not it wakes up and infects trees depends on a set of circumstances.
Right.
There's really good studies and evidence that it can be managed, that the pathogen can be managed if you follow, all of the things that our program is addressing. But there still will be new sites and new detections while even though all of this is happening.
But you're not seeing a flurry of kauri trees suddenly dying, or that.
It is. It's very slow. So a large tree, a large 1,200-year-old tree could take 20, 30, 40, 50 years to fully die. So it's.
And onto the gamification of community education. Obviously, with AI now being able to design things much faster, are you going to be doing more gamification in future? Not just of Kauri, but of your other education program?
I think gamification is something we should definitely be doing more of.
Well, if I can have a go.
Yeah, sure.
This is a really powerful tool. That's really powerful. And I mean, if you look at how much it costs per person who does it, it was actually relatively cheap. I mean, it has been through thousands of people for the cost, and BNZ bankrolled it, and we did the mahi to do it. So it's pretty effective. Once you've got the tool, you've got the tool. And it would be brilliant to do for freshwater biosecurity or marine biosecurity, because it's the same kind of issues you're dealing with, which is trying to stop people moving stuff around.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it would be really powerful tool.
And especially for that younger generation who are on the phones all the time anyway. They don't read a book
100%.
on it. So, but I just wonder, have the costs presumably come down, because nowadays it's $20 to do
The cost, if we went today to do the same thing, it would cost. Yeah.
To develop a package for freshwater biosecurity would probably still be the same cost.
Right.
But then once you've got that tool, all people need is a headset,
Which we've got.
and so we can use the same hardware.
Right.
And the other thing is, because of this, the Kauripo Kaitiaki, other people have seen the opportunities for freshwater. So Auckland Council are developing packages for other biosecurity threats, right, that we might be able to then just grab. So, and also you can, I don't think it would be particularly difficult to crowd fund it with all the people involved in biosecurity to take that hump of investment, make it easier for everybody to invest in it.
It's music to the ears of some people in the financial sector, that the crowdfunding of this and the BNZ funding it's a good model.
Yeah, it is absolutely, and yeah, we'll cover off some other things that we same as well.
I was just going to say, what makes this quite special too is VR. What you see is really amazing, but it was all the work behind it, working with local iwi, getting the music right, making sure the ecology was right, all the people involved, which makes this quite special rather than just this thing that we could have done it ourselves, but it wouldn't have been as good. So we got a lot of people involved, and when you get people involved, some people do it for nothing, some people don't. Yeah, which made it this. That's why it's so special. So if you get a chance to use it, have a look in a minute. It'll be awesome.
Well done. I nominate Councillor Hughes first up.
So in the next room, there's about 6 of them we can use. So everyone can go at once almost.
Although it is almost as much fun to watch someone else doing it as it is to do it yourself.
Yeah, we'll be taking photos and videos.
Oh, I was just going to say, would this not be better to do at the end of the session and get through the workshop stuff first? It's just a suggestion. Well, it's just a suggestion, but I know I've got a meeting a bit later, and I'm just wondering.
Yeah, it saves me twiddling my thumbs while you guys are having fun.
I know it's out of sequence, but I'm just wondering, and I know councillors fall asleep about 3 o'clock, so might be better to put the headsets on then.
Yeah.
See you later.
Atlantis.
Thank you.
Cool.
I will see you soon.
But you might want to break from my voice, but no, good. Okay, let's switch gears and look, I'm going to give you a bit of an overview of the biosecurity program, a bit of context and background, and hopefully cover off some of the points that we've been discussing. And then Brett and Darian are going to have a look at some case studies. All right. Okay, so pest management has a pretty long history in New Zealand. It started well before the term biosecurity was used. And it kicked off when introduced species that were released for recreation, building, primary industry, or for food became pretty serious issues. And it started with rabbits. Introduced for food and fur in the early 1800s. They quickly built to real plague levels, which led, importantly, to the first pest-related legislation being enacted, and government funding being available, and the establishment of pest destruction boards. So we have a long history in pest management. Border protection actually followed really soon after. So in 1895, it kicked off big time with things, quarantine being introduced. So we've had over 130 years of biosecurity. Regional councils were formed in 1989, absorbing those pest destruction boards and broadening the role of regional government. Regional level rates were introduced, providing funding and allowing communities to focus on issues that mattered to them. This brought an increase in investment for pest management, which complemented some of the large-scale central government funded programs. The focus at this point was very much terrestrial, and no real investment in freshwater or marine kicked off until 1990s. And the first truly national programs then started, aiming to cut through the various layers of government across the country. By the mid-2000s, it was becoming pretty clear that for many pests, we needed to take a longer term view if we're going to be able to tackle them. And this work and thinking has continued with a wide range of national programs now established to deliver outcomes for all of New Zealand. We're going to look at some of them soon, and the Kāori program is a good example of one of them. So after 130 years, we view New Zealand's system not as a wall, but as a series of nets. And Biosecurity New Zealand and regional sector often use this illustration to show that what the biosecurity system is and remind people that it is made up of a whole series of layers. A strong system requires cooperation and activity offshore in supply chains, at the border, and post-border. And it requires everyone to do their bit. So in the face of increasing pressures, including changing scale and complexity of trade, travel, and climate change, it's more important than ever that we have a strong and resilient biosecurity system. This graphic I've pinched from our biosecurity strategy, and it demonstrates how biosecurity system works. Regional government's role is to lead pest management within and between regions. We are a key part of the system, and we grapple with pests that make it through those nets, or where they were here before the nets were in existence. I kind of look at regional councils as a bit of an interface between central government or Biosecurity New Zealand and our local communities, mana whenua and landowners. In 1993, the Biosecurity Act was introduced. It provides the legal framework for MPI or Biosecurity New Zealand and others to help keep harmful organisms out of New Zealand, and a framework for how we respond and manage them when they make it through the border. It covers pre-border risk management and standard setting, border management, readiness and response, and long-term management. All regions across New Zealand have regional pest management plans that are prepared under the Biosecurity Act. Our one was improved in 2022. I guess at this point, it's worth noting that Biosecurity New Zealand is reviewing the Biosecurity Act and the National Policy Direction for Pest Management. Ture Kahika, or the regional sector, are involved at all levels. And actually, we're looking forward to some of the improvements that have been signalled. And we're hoping these changes come into effect late 2027 or early 2028. Some of the improvements include, we're hoping better management of pests and diseases, and that's really about making sure the system is fit for purpose, remove procedural inefficiencies, and empower regional leadership. The other thing we're really looking forward to is making enforcement more effective. The only tool we have at the moment is full prosecutions, which is a pretty big hammer to wield for often minor issues to deal with. The other thing, there's lots of other improvements, but clarity with other legislation, how the Biosecurity Act interacts with the Wild Animal Control Act, and better surveillance of pests and diseases. All right, so let's have a look at our biosecurity program. We now have a program that flows from a direction setting strategy right through to our annual reports. We started reviewing our old RPMP in 2018. Actually, we actually started in 2015 because we had to find the money to do it because it's a pretty expensive process. So we started in 2015, got the funding in 2018, and it took till 2022 to approve it. So it's a pretty long process. It's fairly comprehensive. Key steps include, and I think this is going to start touching on how we made decisions, right? So reviewed all of our pest programs, which ones were on track or off track, where changes were needed, and identified issues and opportunities. And some of those issues were new pests. What do you do with them? We held informal discussions with all stakeholders before we kicked off the formal process, with central government, iwi, and importantly the staff that have their finger on the pulse. Ran quite a series of workshops with councillors, walked them through the full range of programs, full range of issues, full range of opportunities to develop what actually we saw as our proposal for this program. At this early stage, we split out the strategy, which is our direction setting document, from the regional pest management plan, which is kind of the rule book. Previously, it was mushed into one and confusing. People did not understand what our program was. Once we did that, we got into the formal Biosecurity Act process. We launch a proposal, submissions and hearings, and then eventually leading to the approval of the regional pest management plan. I have to say we had a very high level of support for the approach we took and the eventual program we've landed on. Once you've got all that in place, we had 5 months to develop an operational plan, which outlines how we implement the RPMP, including in key indicators, objectives, and how we're going to achieve them. And then we report on the whole program each year. And then your report summarises the entire program, so our non-regulatory programs and our strategy, as well as our more statutory kind of programs in the RPMP. And we work really hard to produce a report that provides good governance information. So, you know, around this table, you understand where we're winning and where we're not, and also makes sense to the community. Because previously we wrote reports that were very long and all words. So a lot of effort to get where we've got to with our annual report. A little bit more on the strategy. So this we look at the strategy as a blueprint. So, you know, it's like for how we operate and how we maintain our cohesive, comprehensive program, and also so that people understand what our program is. That's what the point of the strategy was. It's broken into 3 parts. The first part is really just scene setting, who's who in the zoo, the legislation that interacts with the Biosecurity Act. It's all the nuts and bolts that is the foundation. Part 2 is the heart of the strategy, the vision, the goals, the outcomes sought, and our priorities. And it articulates the wide range of work areas that are not just the RPMP. And when I was reflecting on this, I thought, you know, give you a few examples of programs that we don't necessarily have rules for, but are really important for the region. One is, you know, around regional leadership. So the work that we do with the territorial authorities to prepare them for the arrival of Dutch elm disease. I ask why we do that. Well, it's been stuck in Auckland for, what, 2 decades. And 3 years ago, it jumped out of the Auckland region and started moving through the Waikato. We don't know how or why, but it did. And it kills the elm trees really fast. And the district councils have a lot of elm trees planted in their parks. And we had to prepare them for significant costs to manage this significant health and safety risk, because these things die real fast and then they start falling over. It's been a really cool project because it's got us closer with the districts. And all we're doing is showing a bit of leadership. And on the back of that, the work we're doing to prepare New Zealand for avian influenza, so H5N1, highly pathogenic avian influenza, when it arrives, the people who are going to have to manage the impacts are district councils and Department of Conservation, because the birds will die on reserves and you don't want people to interact with those birds. So we're, as a regional sector, working with the districts to prepare them for when that arrives. Again, we don't need rules for it. We just need to provide leadership. And again, it's working really well. And luckily this year, off the back of the work we did in Auckland and Waikato, Biosecurity New Zealand has provided $3 million to the Te Kahaka, so the regional sector, to help boost this work program. We've also developed a lot stronger partnerships with Kiwi Vine Health, so to manage wild and kiwi fruit in partnership with them. New Zealand Deerstalkers Association, you know, we used to be at loggerheads, now we have a pretty good relationship with them. Clean Vessel Plan with the top of the North Councils, And as I mentioned earlier, you know, the relationship with other regions under the banner of Tura Kahaka is immensely powerful for the biosecurity program. We have got 76 projects on the go as a sector, and many of them means you've got cost sharing across all of that. So why do something 16 times when you can do it once? So the efficiencies you gain are massive, but also the effective buying power and you get the brain power of the whole sector, not just this council. So, another program that we kicked off after this biosecurity strategy was better pest plant data, and we now have a great system in place that allows us to track how well our programs are going, and our reporting is 1 million times better. So that's part 1 and part 2 of the biosecurity strategy. Part 3 really talks about, kind of summarizes it all and talks about how we monitor the implementation and report on the work. And if you haven't got it and haven't seen it, I've got a copy there if someone wanted to grab it. Right, and so the regional pest management plan, and this is my last slide. Yes, that is my slide.
If you didn't get another slide, go through that
Yeah,
first,
cool.
then I'll do it.
Right, so I thought it might be helpful to talk a little bit about the process we went through to how we picked our programs, right, and what council landed on. So the whole aim is to provide cost-effective biosecurity management for the Waikato. To do this, every program that we've got is assessed and prioritised on a cost versus benefit basis. The cost-benefit analysis considers the impact of the organism to the regional economy and the environment. So that's how big could the problem get, and what would the impacts are going to be. The stage of the organism's invasion, and this is where we use the pest invasion curve. And it's pretty simple. It's basically if something arrives and we find it and there's not many individuals and you're on the left-hand side of the curve, it's pretty cost effective to get rid of that thing before it becomes a bigger issue. The longer the longer the infestation develops and the more widely distributed the pest gets, the further you get along to the right until you get to an explosion of numbers, and then it goes eventually to everywhere it can go and impacts very broadly. And at that point, it's really so you factor in the regional distribution and the potential future distribution, and we do a bit of modelling on that. And then it's absolutely critically important, the availability, effectiveness, and quality of control tools. Some things like golden clams, there are none. So if it gets somewhere, it's there. That's it. You've got no tools to manage. And unfortunately, it's a little bit like that with koi. Once it's there, it's incredibly expensive. And it comes down to then a decision on where do you want to put your money. And this is what council went through, and we did a lot of workshops on this. We mapped every single potential pest and worked through it with council about where it is on this curve, how much it's going to cost, can we get the benefits. It was a very long process, but it was really good. So the other thing, and it's a little bit hard to see, but underneath there you have the words, the objective, right? So whether it's exclusion, eradication, progressive containment, sustained control, or site-led. And those are terms out of the Biosecurity Act. And so they've kind of legal definitions of what it is, right? So depending on where the pest is on a curve is what you classify it as. Right, so I really want to say on that. No, so any species included in the RPMP are legally identified as pests. And there's rules that come in associated with something being called a pest. So generally speaking, council wanted to invest in programs that were on the left-hand side. the things. So where we could invest in exclusion, eradication, or progressive containment, because it's more cost effective to do that. Where a pest is more widely established, it's not saying we don't have programs, they're just different programs. So say the possum program is sustained control. We're not going to get rid of it out of region, but the impacts are so massive. This council over time has built a big program in place. And Darren will talk a little bit about some of the other, another program we have in established phase of pest invasion curve. And we tried to, through this process of tried to make it all sense and stitch it together as a cohesive program. And when we report on it, we try and then tie it all back to the objective that we are trying to achieve. And that is me. So,
Some questions?
yeah, there's time for questions before I hand over to Brett and Darren.
Working with the regional sector group, so that $3 million, how much of that, was any of that dedicated to come back directly to us, or was it over the whole sector?
It's for everybody. So, yeah, I mean, it doesn't come into, we hold the money, but it's going to contractors to support PAs, purchase of signs, training.
It's just relative to a discussion that's going to come up tomorrow of how much of that we actually got as a part of LGNZ. So
it's not LGNZ.
Eh?
Nothing to do with LGNZ.
Yeah, but we belong to that because of,
Right.
we don't, oh, not that one.
Sorry,
I got the wrong one.
No, it's just regional sector.
Okay, sorry. Chris.
Okay, first point is just an observation and not questions. The reason for harping on and continuing about koi carp is that they are contributing to contamination of the waterways. We all acknowledge that, but what's not recognised is exactly what percentage of the contamination is being caused by the koi carp, the geese, the ducks, and everything else that's going into the waterways, as compared with the farmers who gets blamed for everything. And we've got Plan Change 1. In Plan Change 1, there's given no recognition to the damage that these other creatures, if you like, God's creatures, are contributing. So my crusade's going to be to try and understand that, and so that we can head off any future stupid claims to put clamps on the activities of our farmers and make sure that they don't get blamed for what's happening, because it will destroy the Waikato if we allow that to continue. So there is some serious work to be done. And Greg, I can only say thanks for that package of explanatory document, research that have been carried out that you sent me. Unfortunately, I've lost that link, but I think that should be shared with all councillors. I think you did tell me at the time you'd be happy to do that if I thought it's worthwhile. I do think it's worthwhile because there's a lot of very valuable information in there. We need to use that information. Somebody needs to run AI over that in here and pull out all the data that we've actually collected over the years and assemble it in one place, which can then be used as your database to assist with understanding the impacts of koi and other creatures on the waterways. My couple of questions. First one, and you'll know the answer to this. There's an invasive plant up north now, I'm told, which is 10 times worse than Karakia. And the reason it's so bad is that it just kills everything else around, and it's got no nutritional value, and it's almost impossible to eradicate. So I don't know whether you're aware of that. Put you in touch with somebody who's...
Are you talking about Madagascan ragwort?
Yeah, Madagascan ragwort, yeah.
Well aware of it.
And what we're doing to make sure that doesn't get down here, unless it's already here, I haven't heard of it. And just if you can give us an update on the wasp eradication program in North Auckland, yeah.
Hornets.
Hornets, yeah.
Well, we can come back. We can fire you some this latest sit rep on the hornwort later on. On the hornets later on.
Okay. So what about our Madagascan Fred.
And we're working with Northland and Auckland on basically pathway management, right? So to make, and industry, so making sure that, again, people don't move it down here because it's only going to get here via people.
Absolutely. So what are we doing?
Yeah,
Got
so
need to go. I haven't seen anything about it, that's all. In the media or posters coming into the Waikato, have you checked this? Make sure you're not bringing this horrible thing with you.
So right now we're working with Northland. They're putting together a program because we want it to stay in Northland. They have putting regulatory tools around it, or that's what they want to do. And they're working with industry to make sure it stays in Auckland. For us, it looks very similar to another one called gravel groundsel. So we are, well, our staff are aware of it, and they know what they look for. It's a really difficult one to ID, but in saying that, we're still looking for it. Our key thing is working with Northland. Northland need to keep it up there. We don't want it, so we need to make sure that they are keeping it up there. If you're looking at pathway management, so we're starting to work with, we're working with Auckland. We're about to work with Auckland, Bay of Plenty, and Horizons to look at some of our exclusion and high threat pest plants and agriculture and understand how they could potentially move from there into the Waikato. Madagascar and ragwort, even though it's in Northland, it's part of that conversation because the pathway is still the same linked to those pests. So from our point of view, we are working closely with Northland. It's their problem at the moment. And so we're working with them on it. And they are trying to engage with industry and central government to make sure that they can get what they need.
So like the logical way to that'll be transported is by vehicles being on properties.
Hay, probably.
probably hay
Hay,
during a
hay,
drought
hay.
in the Waikato. It'll be
So
when it
actually,
gets here.
how do we stop it? You know,
So
that's what I want to know.
You might recall last year or the year before, there was a drought in the Waikato, and we put media up in Northland and into Hawke's Bay saying, we don't want your weeds. Make sure there's a whole lot of information around that. Also telling farmers, make sure you know where you're buying your feed from. I can't be at every gate and we can't be at the border making sure that these things are coming in and out. So we also rely on farmers doing the right thing and having the right messaging as well. Whether they do that or not, it's up to them.
Yeah, the truth, the easiest way for it to get shifted is between the hooves of cows.
Yep.
That's,
So how many farmers have quarantine areas on their farm
yeah.
for new stock? How many farmers feed
That's
on
where Karakia grass, every time you shift your heifers out of Northland, bring them back to the Waikato, they've got a tiller on their feet. Karakia grass just comes down from Northland every single time you bring cattle down. It's a natural way of getting there. Where if you make it into silage or hay, it's got less chance of regenerating, but it's actually stock movements is how it gets here faster than anything else. Gary.
Yeah, touched on the N1H1 bird flu. And I was just interested in that comment there that of the effects and keeping people away from the birds when they're going down. How many different species? What species does it affect? And what are you hearing in that? That's question one.
So we work. So Biosecurity New Zealand works closely with the countries that have, so America and Europe, and seeing how the disease manifests in those countries and kind of doing some predictions, I guess, around what would happen in New Zealand, but they're really not sure how it would manifest and which species it will affect, but they know that it will affect some species, and therefore you might end up with dead or dying birds in public reserves.
You're looking at our chickens, that type of thing. We don't know what sort of impact it's going to have on our native species, which is a concern. So, yeah.
Pardon me. Question two was getting back what Chris raised about the koi carp. It seems to me though that it's an admittal that there's the towel thrown in that it's too hard basket, so look at something else, which I don't think is acceptable.
It's Gary, it's actually legislated that this is a DOC responsibility, not ours. So you can't if you want to mandate our staff to fixing Koi Cup, you're going to you're going to make Waikato pick up the total cost. And is that what you want?
No,
So your ratepayers that you're asking now, because we'll get down to the nitty gritty of it, you're asking your ratepayers now to pay 100% of the cost of cleaning, fixing Koi Cup. This is something that needs to be driven from Wellington to fix this issue. And we as a council should be pushing back to Wellington saying, what are you going to do to help fund this? You shouldn't keep taking it out on our staff to fix it because it's not their responsibility.
I think you've taken that wrong, Robbie.
No, I'm not. Does any?
no,
I'm open up for that discussion because Koi Cup comes up in every discussion, and I think it's not Patrick's responsibility to eradicate or to control Koi Cup. It is Doc's responsibility and legislation.
The question was not that, Robbie. The question was, will our council look at things?
It's not up to the staff. You're asking us as councillors to take responsibility and put up an option. Do we want to fund Koi Cup in the Waikato region? I think it is.
With respect, hang on. Can I have my say, please? Rather than talking over.
Yeah, go for it. But I want this finished and done with and it doesn't come up again.
I'd make them up again, make them up many times again, because what I'm proposing is not for our council, and I'm not blaming you guys at all, not at all. And that is totally wrong in suggesting that, is that instead of taking the same tack and saying, okay, we can't do such and such, so are we going to take it off dock? No, we're not. But what we could be doing, though, is lobbying government for that change of legislation that opens the ability for others, innovators, that can actually do something. And it may not be the way that you've looked at it in the past, and it may be in it that it's just remove the impediments that mean that others can go in and do things to reduce the numbers down in mass, which they could do, but that requires legislation change at government level. And what I'm asking for is that our council lobbies for that legislation change.
And this is a committee that can't make changes. You're sitting next to the chair of Stratton Poll. That is the committee to have that discussion with, not ours.
Well, that may be so, but
it doesn't go any further. You can do whatever you want in this committee, but we can't do anything until it goes to Stratton Poll Committee.
Well, we'll raise it in Stratton Poll Committee, won't we?
That's what I'm trying to say. The discussion that we keep going over and over with Koi Cup is the wrong discussion to keep bringing up in ICM. It has got to go to Stratton Poll, not to here. And that's my frustration. I don't mind us having a 2-minute discussion in the meeting of the concerns of Koi Cup, but for it to take control of the meeting all the time is becoming a real issue. Yep.
Sorry, you've indicated this report coming to this committee, which will mention Koi Cup.
The council.
To council.
So it's not coming to them, it's going to SMC, it's going to be coming through ELT to probably Stratton Poll.
Okay, thank you.
Chris Hughes.
Yeah, look, I just want to follow up to make sure that my comments don't agree with what Gary's saying.
Yeah.
Because to me, it's important. This council, when we're making decisions where it's don't understand animals.
Yep.
Fish on the water.
Well, catfish should be put in there as well. But anyway, move on.
I just want to make that.
Warren.
So we've just heard two things. One, there's a paper coming to the council about it. We've heard that about 3 times this meeting, so I'm not sure why Gary can't pick it up. Secondly, Gary, this is the 3rd time I've asked you to get the information together, bring it to me on what a commercial operation might look like, and then we can look at where we take it. So this is the 3rd time. You keep banging on about it, do something about it. Okay, this is the 3rd time. I'm getting sick of it. Stop banging on and actually do something.
Gary Raymer.
Just getting back to your, was it Madagascar ragwort and spreading that, so it's the same with our yellow bristlegrass and those sort of weeds, you know, and they've, you know, I think you're rightly identified, they come down the corridor basically, and I'd say through vehicles, whether it be by hay or whatever. But I also understand that they were allowed to take a hold because of change of spray policies on roadsides, you know, where we used to use residual sprays as well around things. So, you know, and as a farmer, we know that weeds really like, or don't like competition. So when you don't use a residual spray, we allowed things like YBG to take off. So have we gone back to those sort of things, like we can use residual sprays on roadsides around road markers, signs, and everything else to stop these, you know, or reduce chance of free competition around that?
Yeah. There's a long answer to that, but EPA banned the use of certain residual herbicides. I think it was zimazine or one of those they used to use back in the day, which was brilliant. And then glyphosate came into play. Obviously, glyphosate's cheap, easy to use, and so councils are choosing to use glyphosate over some of these other residuals. I guess it's a district council decision around what herbicides they want to use. But on top of that too, I mean, the likes of the zimazine, my understanding was that they banned it because it was getting into the drains, then the drains were getting into the paddocks and then impacting on farmers on their land that way. So there's pros and cons around those different herbicides. And yellow bristlegrass, man, that's widespread. We've been working on that. Man, I've been in this role 2007. I came to this council, and the farmers had started working on a yellow bristlegrass action group back in those days, and they invested hundreds and hundreds, if not into the millions of dollars, into research and come up with two brilliant herbicides that can manage it. One's Pumaris, and the other one is called Docstar. That this group, we helped fund it. We're involved in that as well, but it was farmer led, and they've now come up with that. I could come back and talk a lot about yellow bristlegrass and how it moves and why it moves at a later date. But yeah, the residual herbicide thing, yeah, that's really comes back to what the EPA will allow the roading companies to use on the side of the road and around water. So.
But aren't we then choosing between the lesser of two evils? Because, so I understand what you say about potential, you know, getting into waterways. So, and that is a potential threat. But if we don't do that, then we actually possibly have a greater problem. So, you know, we have to choose, you know, as a council and as, you know, I understand, so district councils have different policies around it, but do we have to choose or give direction around what we perceive to be the lesser of the two evils?
So the lesser of the two evils, one being herbicide getting to the water and the other one being invasion of the weed onto farmland. Yeah. So first of all, yellow bristlegrass, widespread. So when you look at that invasion curve, it's up the established end of the invasion curve. So very expensive for a council to put rules on and manage. So that's fine, but it's not that we're not doing anything. Ag research, well, what was ag research, brought out a whole lot of information which is freely available on their websites and on how to manage as a farmer, how you manage a roadside invasion. As a landowner, so when it's on your farm, how best to manage it on your pasture. So it comes back to a pasture management regime. Yep, the herbicide and water, yes, that's a discussion we need to have with the EPA around what they will and won't allow. At the moment, we can't use those herbicides, so we look at how do we manage pasture with it in it, knowing that it's already widespread, and there are actually tools that we can use to manage it, and on-farm practices that can help with that as well.
So my point is not around YBG, so it's just an example, but what we don't want is a repeat of that. And so,
yes, so sorry, okay.
What I actually want to do is get ahead of the game,
100%.
So we so it doesn't happen a second time, because you know, as a farmer, it's hugely expensive on farm, and this year is actually it's just gone ballistic. We've never seen YBG like it. just driving around the countryside, you see it everywhere. So,
Oh, I
so,
get
so
you. Yeah,
I don't want a repeat of that. I want to say,
Yep.
let's get ahead of it. Let's make sure it doesn't happen.
100%. No, yes, I agree totally. That's why we're working on this pathway management project with our regional neighbours to make sure we don't get their things. So, yeah, good point.
Ben, have you got a last question?
Yeah. So Patrick, you're proposing to bring a paper on Koi to Stratton Pole. Is that correct? And what time frame are you looking at?
I have the pleasure of saying it won't be me. And Greg it won't be Greg either. So it'll be Mike Scarsbrook through Strandpole, and we'll have to get back to you on when that's coming.
Okay, I'm just wondering, you're also stating that it will include the potential of looking at commercialisation.
I think it'll talk about it in more like what's the legislative framework that.
What are the gates?
Yep. And so just
exactly.
The gate you've got to go through to make it happen.
If Gary has got some input into that, who should he get it back to, and what's the time frame for doing that? Warren's asked for some information. It could go through to the paper.
Connect through to Tracy.
But who's going to be writing the?
Tracy.
So I'll connect through to Tracy May, and she'll direct you to the right place.
Okay, but you think it'll be Mike Scarsbrook, possibly your author?
He's involved in it, but I think use Tracy as your gateway.
Yeah,
to get to the right person.
And we're all behind Mike, but Mike is the pen.
You don't want to go in front of Mike.
No.
You just threw him under the bus.
Not really.
All right. Carry on. What's next?
Right, that's me. I'm next. So, as you know, I'm Darian, manage the pest plant program. So I'm just going to go through a few of the pest plants that we work with, and it will highlight some of the programs and what we're dealing with. So first up, this is called white bryony. White bryony is an invasive vine. It's like a cucumber-like vine. It's only found in 3 places in New Zealand. So 2 of those places are in the Wakatu, Aria and Motuiki, and the other one is down by Mangaweka. So the program is led by MPI. So they fund the program, they lead the program. We partner with them to deliver the program. So that's nationally led, locally delivered kind of approach. The program's been running 26 years. Sounds like a long time, but when it comes to pest plants, this is a relatively short program. And we have 2 sites. Those 2 sites are in a map photo there. In the January-February period, we do on-ground surveillance. So we employ a contractor. They race around looking across all the key habitat within those red areas on that map and looking for the vine. Yeah, it's like I said, it's quite an obvious vine. There's nothing else around it that really looks like it. Why we think this is beatable? So it is spread by seed. So the seed can live up to 3 years. So we sort of budget on 6 years, but the science, what we know with science tells us it can live around 3 years. So for long-term dormancy of seed, it's unlikely to be a long-term project there. However, it forms this massive tuber, as you can see with our contractor there. That's as big as it gets for us. Normally it's around a kumara size when we find these things. But those tubers can live for a very long time. So that's why when we're out there looking for this thing, we dig up the tuber out of the ground. If we can't dig it up, they must have taken ages to dig that up, by the way. Which is good. We want everything dug out of the ground. And when you're looking at eradication, you've got to find the last one and you've got to do everything you can to get rid of that thing. So, yeah, if we go to the next slide.
Can I just ask?
Yep.
Can you eat the root?
Oh, good point. I don't know if you can eat it, but I had some medicinal lady come and try and ask me, next time we find a root, can we give it to her?
Good.
Funny thing is, we've never found a root since she asked. I'll show you in a minute why. So going back to this invasion curve, because everything relates back to the invasion curve. So this is right at the beginning of the invasion curve. There's only 3 sites in New Zealand that have it. Go to the next slide. This is in the Waikato. See, there are 2 sites. Sorry, it's big map, but you get the idea. So this is typical when it comes to how you eradicate a pest plant or pests in general. Start off with lots. You don't stop. You keep going. As you can see on the one on the right, area, first few years we thought we were onto it. We're really doing well. We increased our surveillance and we found a whole lot more. We could have stopped there and gone, this is too hard, but we trucked on. And now we're at a point where Motuiki, we've got 6 years with no new plants found. In Aria, we have 3 years with no new plants found. So we're at that really hard part now where we've still got there'll be a plant out there, guarantee it. We've got to find it. So that's our next phase in this program. It's a highly collaborative program between DOC, MPI, and us. So that's White Briny, nationally led program. They fund us. We run around and do it. Velvet leaf. If you've been around this table long enough, you would have heard me talk a lot about velvet leaf over the years. So this is big. So for us, it was first found in the Waikato in around 2011. However, in 2015, fodder beet seed imported from Europe arrived in New Zealand, and in amongst the fodder beet seed, it's coated seed, so it looks like candy to the eye. You can't tell which was fodder beet and which was velvet leaf. In amongst those batches was velvet leaf, and they planted that from Cape Reinga to Invercargill in fodder beet. That kicked off a massive program. Meanwhile, back in the Waikato, we started getting phone calls in relation to velvet leaf that wasn't linked to the fodder beet incursion, it was linked to maize. So we increased our program in that, which involves detection, so making sure people know, and you can see the dog up there. We have a dog that that's old Rusty, since passed on, but we have a new dog, Wink, and he sniffs out velvet leaf for us. He's pretty cool. So detection, making sure landowners are aware of what it is. It's spread through the maize industry. It lives, the seed, what makes this quite problematic, the seed lives for 60 years plus. So this is not an eradication program. This is a progressive containment. We're trying to contain this thing where it is, which means that when we find a new site, and we do now and again, we do extensive tracing. So that's us working with the landowner, finding out what machinery has been on the property, animals, whatever has been on that paddock, and we do tracing until we get to the end of, we can't find it anymore along that tracing, and that can take us anywhere. It's amazing what that tracing will do. So back in 2016, we got a whole lot of data from there. As a result, we believe we've got it contained in the Waikato. Another highly collaborative program. We work with all those people, all those groups across the bottom. And we also lead the North Island, or manage the North Island velvet leaf control program, which links back into Madagascar and ragwort. So the same tools we're putting in place to try and contain velvet leaf in the North Island will also help us manage Madagascar and ragwort coming out of Northland. Next one.
Gary. What's next to me here always bangs on about the treaty and the treaty legislation, and how that's central government's problem, not our problem, and we shouldn't be dealing with it. I have a similar issue with this, and so I just want clarification or some understanding around it, really. A lot of biosecurity issues are from MPI. It's water security coming in.
Yep.
We get landed with the cost. We can make microbiota and got these weeds in there. Can't we just shove it back to central government saying, you're the water security people, you let us down, this is your problem, or you fund the thing?
I mean, I think historically that was we attempted to do that, but it's very hard to get in front of what is a rapidly changing kind of landscape in terms of how things get into the country. And so we used to, as a sector, say, hey, it's your job. But since then, most of these groups have a relationship with MPI around the border and supporting them on border. Everyone acknowledges that it's a probability game. It's not a, like I said, it's a series of nets. It's not a, it's not a wall. And so, recognition that we are going to get stuff in, and we have to have a way of dealing with that when it arrives. And normally through that net, you're getting something that's pretty good, like it's a good pest.
Yeah.
Just like Cavicula, that thing doesn't move from America or Europe because it's, a bad pest. It can survive, man, and they are like velvet leaf. They are tough things to manage. So, as much as it'd be nice to be able to do that, it's just pragmatic. It's not possible. So we have to find a way of working together in an efficient way that manages it. And so all of these groups get it, and they are all going. We're all part of the same team. This is a really cool program. Back in 2015, when we really got together, it was a bit new, and it's been brilliant. The contractors are incredible, like how they're changing how they harvest maize. They said that we can't clean these things every time we move from a farm because it costs us 3 days because they can't clean all the bits of vegetation off. But if we make sure that we are going from clean farm to clean farm, they inspect the farms before they get there. That and each farmer involved in the velvet leaf program now has a biosecurity plan. They know the impact of it, so they are pretty rigorous on it. It's cool. I mean, that's how we're finding any of the new sites is through the contractors.
Yeah, contractors are telling us.
They'll arrive and go, I'm not touching your maize, I'm sorry.
Which is a real change for us. It's not us looking for it, it's now the farmers themselves and contractors looking for this. Because they've understood that the cost of this thing, if it got truly established in New Zealand, I think the arable industry here is just over $1 billion. This will impact a third of the industry. Would lose a third of the industry if this got established in the arable sector. Arable sector nationally employs nearly 7,000 jobs. So this is important, and I think this is why we've got a good uptake on this one. Good.
You get one of those farmers and you put a raw seed roller on it, it'll be around half the Waikato in 3 months.
Yeah, 100%.
It's just because every time he drives on a property, he takes 200 kilograms of dirt with him in his rollers. Yep. It's like that. Yeah, like it could be astronomical. What the danger of that could happen.
Again, this is it's established in the Waikato. It's because of its seed bank and how many. It's on about just under 70 properties in the Waikato, and across the North Island, it's just on 100. So it's not racing yet, but it could. And our role in this is to contain it. So that's where it sits on there. So the next plant I'm wanting to talk about is alligator weed. Again, one of my favourites. There was such a thing. So this one here, now this is quite a significant piece. So it survives in water and survives on land. On land, it grows faster than grass. It's toxic to cattle and sheep. We were up in Northland a few years ago looking at that. So where Hamish and Sinead are standing, it's a paddock. What they're standing in is alligator weed. When the sheep, we were chatting to the shepherd, when the shepherd turned up, he said the sheep love it, but their ears fall off after they've been eating it. And she talked about it like, oh, that's just the way we farm. That's normal. And we're all sitting there going, not normal in the Waikato, tell you right now. That can't be good. So anyway, cows with calves can abort the calves' fetus. It impacts their liver and really can damage them if it truly got established. In water, it fills up, impact on hydro, all sorts to do with water as well.
It's floating there.
Flood scheme, mate, if I was a flood manager, I'd be worried about this one. Anyway,
yes.
Yeah, we'll move on. Again, in the grand scheme of things, there's not a lot in the Waikato. We talk about a lot. It's a lot in the waterways, but on farms, it's not much, and it hasn't hit the invasion curve yet. Not like Northland. When you see Northland, I also want to add that we worked with Ag Research, and they brought out this I was going to say yellow bristlegrass, alligator weed booklet. It's got all the economic impact data in here and what to do. I've got a whole stack of them here. I want them to spread as far and wide. So if you've got farmers and people you're talking to, give them one of these. I've got buckets of them. So I really need you to have them. Right, move on. Last one, and this is our biocontrol program. So, oh, by the way, I've got, if you haven't seen alligator weed, I've got some here for you to have a look. In here, this is biocontrol program, another one of the extremely collaborative program. Not only is this collaborative nationally, we're part of a national group that fund biocontrols. I was at a symposium a few weeks ago.
Don't open them.
Oh, don't open that one.
They were opened last time, and then they went everywhere.
Yeah, this room is full. The sheep don't eat that one. Yeah, so internationally significant as well. So we've got a whole lot of biocontrols there that we've released into Waikato over the last 15 years. This one here is Tradescantia. So those that are aware of Tradescantia, it's a ground cover. It stops seedlings from coming up in the forest doing its thing. So there we were able to release 3 biocontrols, 3 insect biocontrols. We're pretty simple creatures. So one's called Knobbly, one's called Stripey, and one's called Shiny. I haven't got pictures of them. Google it when you jump on. One eats the stem, one eats the leaf, and one eats the tip. So combined, they eat the entire plant. Biocontrols that we release are so specialised that that's all they'll eat. If the plant's not there, they will die. I want to also add, so you can come and have a look at this shortly. We also have a smut fungus for wet areas where trad is. The other one I want to say too is that yellow flag iris, big problem in Lower Waikato. We've been working with Landcare to bring in some beetles and some sea weevils. So that's biocontrol. I just want to show the invasion curve again. So, this is Tradescantia. Obviously, left, no bugs. Right, same place with the bugs. And it can happen very quickly too. These things pretty rapid growth. And we're generally looking at biocontrols when the tools are all exhausted. We can't, the cost of managing these things, and one of the other programs is massive. So we look at biocontrols for these established plants. So over the years, there's been ragwort, horse, this sorts of different things. So that's examples of different things in the program I run. Obviously, you saw Amy before in the Cody program. Hopefully, you can hang around and look at the VR afterwards. You.
Now, I'm only
Right, Chris,
Oh, sorry.
The guards.
yeah, Chris, once you do
Just
your
one quick
last question.
The weed that was in Kinloch, you familiar with that?
On what?
Kinloch,
Yeah.
the marina,
Mm-hmm.
that's gone. So how did you get rid of that?
Oh, heck. I don't know. It was nothing to do with us, I don't think.
Oh, it must have been, like, it would have been part of the nitrogen thing. The nitrogen was feeding it. So did the elimination of nitrogen from Lake Taupo get rid of it, or maybe Mikhail knows the answer.
Sorry, I'm not sure what you're meaning.
It was a horrible thing, and it used to get on boat trailers, so it was spread around other.
It might have been sprayed. They may have sprayed it.
Local the marina might have sprayed it because the herbicides you can do to manage those aquatic weeds is freely available for people to use.
It was there for years. Like,
Mm.
okay,
So I
thanks.
think you're talking about Onwat, which is a big issue down in the
Sorry, I've got another mechanism.
Right. We can do it another day. But no, it's look, I'm only going to look at 2 of my programs. As we said at the start, my program's quite big. So I just would look at the wallabies and rooks, but do a bit of a deep dive into the sort of the background, where they've come from, that sort of thing. I have got quite a large amount of slides. Don't panic. I can race through them pretty quickly. So a bit of history. Is the stately gentleman on the right, Sir George Grey, first introduced wallabies to Karakia Islands in about 1870. I think he brought in.
a stately person.
No. He introduced 5 species of wallabies at the time, alongside monkeys, zebras, antelope, and a lot of other things in this little private menagerie out there. Monkeys did quite well as well, but that's a different story. We can, for another day, they did really well on the island. But then in 1912, Dama were taken from there and released at Lake Karakia near Rotorua. So, and that release was the direct origins of today's wallaby sort of issue that would. And then, you know, you start to go through the timelines. Your population recognised ecology damage in the 70s, and then the scientific evidence supported that in the 80s, 90s, and the continued spread across Bay of Plenty and Waikato over that time till about 2020, when we stood up the National Eradication Program effort called Tipa Matuara, which, go to that, Patrick, next slide. So the government launched it in 2020. Major, you know, it was a major policy shift at the time, and their goals to stop the spread and progressively eradicate wallabies. Partners in the program: MPI, DOC, regional councils, iwi, landowners, and researchers. Focus area for the North Island is the Bay of Plenty and the Waikato. And to address one of your earlier questions, Robbie, we get central government funding for the program to the tune of sort of $1.2 to $1.5 million annually, you know, and between, you know, that's offset, yep, in this region, and, you know, that's to support about, there's about $800,000 contribution from both ourselves and the Bay Plenty Regional Council. So we do quite well out of that central government funding. The map there shows current containment area, and the yellow, sorry, go back. Shows the containment area that we're working to. The purple area there being our current surveillance area. That's where we currently focus a lot of our work. If we go to the next slide, Patrick. So to do nothing, worst case scenario for us. So we've got in the North Island, the Dama and Palmer wallabies. One's on the right. To do nothing, they're saying that you know, would have wallabies over a third of the North Island in 50 years if we went to, you know, if we do nothing. So that's that black line you can see on the graph there. South Island a bit different, and they have a different species, being the Bennett, the larger wallabies on the left that you can see. Our guys are only, you know, a lot smaller stature, but still doesn't stop them eating grass. So. Why are they a problem? So basically they eat everything at height, including seedlings, compete with stock on farmland for pasture, and affect commercial forestry by eating young trees. So that first photo there is Karakia Island. And the reason I chose to show you that is there's no other grazing animals out there. Sorry, there's one goat on the island left, but all that damage that you can see, so it's basically like looking at someone's lawn, is through wallabies. So it is absolutely destroyed, and that's the impact that they have once they get established. This is what we're also starting to see in parts of Bay of Plenty. Photo in the middle is where they've been grazing pasture. So whilst they eat the grass, they also, when they soil the ground, stock will not actually graze on pasture following wallabies, where wallabies have been. So, you know, just another added impact farmers where you've got a wallaby problem, is the stock just won't graze on it after. So, and then that photo on the right hand side, the pine trees on the right. If you were to look to the left of that, there's actually there are some very sparse pine trees in there that have been affected by wallabies. They should actually look like all the ones on the right of that photo. So if you take a sort of close look, there are some little trees in there struggling away. And then the next one, that's actually Okataina. Just to give you an example of impacts on native, you know, in the North Island. Difference there, you've also got, so that's an exclosure plot, but you've also got deer in there that, you know, also having an impact on substory, but you see the same effect. But, you know, there's this around Cowell, those real massive impacts on understory from these guys. So the tools that we've got, surveillance tools that we've got a team of detector dogs, really good at looking for, you know, scat and hair and live animals, and good at covering large areas really quickly. Motion cameras or trail cameras are something that we've been using recently. Really good at confirming presence and extent of breeding populations. And we have started using them sort of as a monitoring tool pre and post control operations. And then thermal drones is something more recently that, we're starting to use a lot more. Can cover large areas and safely. You're starting to talk about geothermal sites down in Rotorua that you don't really want to be putting people into, so you can easily cover it with a drone. And then passive surveillance or citizen science. Some of the best sightings we get through, logging truck drivers that are driving these forestry roads at 3 in the morning, heading into work, or 4 in the morning. We get a lot of calls from them to say, hey, I saw a wallaby on such and such a road. So, that sort of thing to us is invaluable, and getting those reports is really handy. Just the next slide, I thought I'd chuck that up there just to give you an idea of the effort over time. So dog surveillance on the left-hand side from 2020 to 2026, that's all tracking line, GPS lines of where dogs have walked. So over that time, they've covered just under 50,000 kilometres. So they're 49,000 kilometres of dog surveillance over that time. Also means that the dog handler that's walking behind them is getting his steps up for the week when he's doing that work. So it's a huge effort. And then the corresponding photo on the right hand side just gives you an idea of sort of the wallabies that have been shot over that time as well, and that's just under 10,000. So we've about 9,900 wallabies shot in the corresponding time through that containment area out into that surveillance area. What it doesn't show is, and just I suppose the biggest risk that we've got to the program is the stuff that pops up, the human assisted spread, where we get wallabies popping up in Awakino, Coromandel, all that sort of thing. They certainly don't get there by themselves. They get there probably in the back of a Hilux, but it takes away time from this core work, and is a concern that why people do it. Probably the same reason Governor Gray did it in the start. It was released in Rotorua for something novel to hunt. Not really sort of thinking about the consequence of doing that, and I suspect that we are seeing a little bit of that too. Something novel that people can release and and hunt.
Are they aware it's illegal to do that?
Yes, many of them are. But this is where we got some really good networks. We've raised the profile out there that farmers are seeing them and go, it's not right. They shouldn't be here. We also do follow up a number that are here's, but we follow everything up. It is good that we're getting those reports, and so we try and follow everything up.
Which follows on from a question you had earlier on. You talked about your enforcement tools. Currently it's just a fine. And I was going to ask, where do you want to move around enforcement around those sorts of things?
Yeah, really tricky with these sorts of things, because under the current legislation, you've actually got to physically see somebody doing it. So you've got to be there, Johnny, on the spot, and see them letting it out of their boot in order to be able to take a prosecution, which is very difficult at this stage. But yeah, bit of a concern. But those ones aren't shown on there. But if you look at Awakino, we put a lot of effort into Awakino.
So DNA wouldn't, to prove they've had a wallaby in their boot, wouldn't be enough evidence. That's got
no, because it could have been, they could have shot wallabies last weekend. Dead wallabies from last weekend type thing. It's got to be in the act.
You don't have to have a license to kill wallabies.
No, and the other thing that people do just to amuse themselves and keep us busy is shoot wallabies and then dump them on roundabouts, and people report them, and we've got to go and follow them up.
Believe it or not, they're doing that with koi carp now.
Yeah. So we go and follow it up. It's just a complete and utter waste of our time. So these are some of the images that we get off our trail cams that sort of lets you know that you've got a breeding pair of wallabies, which is if it's outside that containment, it's a concern. That type of thing just gives us an idea of what's here. Handy tool, really. It picks up all sorts of other animals when you're out doing the work as well. Yeah, we've been finding kiwi where people actually didn't realise kiwi were, so it's quite cool to be able to report to people, hey, you've got a kiwi, and they go, wow, that's pretty cool. Then the next one is just the camera data. So the map on the left is just the interactions that each camera's had with the wallaby. So that grows bigger the more wallabies that are seen on that camera. This is an operation I was going to go into it a bit later on, but I'll go into it now. That we did it's an aerial operation that we did for wallabies. I think we did it in August of 2025. We were trying to prove localized elimination to see if it was possible. So those are the wallaby interactions that we had on trail cameras prior to the operation. And as you can see, with the camera array on the right-hand side, we actually haven't picked up any wallabies since. So it's been, to date, touch wood, it looks like it's been quite
100%.
a successful operation, and important to us because it's at a place called Endines Road, which is in the Bay of Plenty, that leads down into the Waikato. So, yeah. It's good to achieve.
Just a question, would that probably just be a pair of wallabies that wandered everywhere around, or is it just lots of them?
Yeah, lots of them. Yeah, they don't seem to move a lot unless they're forced to move. If they get a pig dog chasing them, or if you start harvesting or thinning trees, move it out. But they like their little sunny spots. They've got their little places they like to be. Yeah, so that was a good result, actually, when you look at that. And then the drone assisted hunting. So that just, we've got, so you'll be a drone operator with the drone up, the little circles, the wallaby and the guy there. They can guide them into where the wallabies are and walk them into to the location to shoot them. Just makes it a little bit easier. Then we're on to control tools, mainly at the moment using night shooting with thermals. They inherently nocturnal. Probably the most commonly used method at the moment, but can be labour intensive and only effective in fairly open country, naturally. Your bait stations and strikers are less effective, they're 30 to 60%, mainly because they are shy and cautious feeders. Now that photo on the right-hand side there was taken when we were doing some trials on good bait stations for wallabies, and that's a possum basically just saying to this wallaby, "Go away, Fred, this is mine." And so they are easily put off by possums and rats. Yeah. But if you've got rats and possums present, then they're more dominant. You're going to get less interaction from your wallabies on those bait stations.
Doesn't go home.
Yeah, till he disappears, and then the wallaby gets it. And that's one of the things. Sometimes we have to work through the the possum and rat populations before we get into the wallabies. And then we've got aerial operations. Again, that was that operation I was talking about. Can be extremely effective and cover large areas and difficult terrain, and they're relatively cost effective with quite high kills. But we can't use it everywhere, and at times controversial. So it's we have to look at other methods when we can. Now, something more recently is exclusion and containment fencing. And that fence there it runs 12.5 kilometres of fence now on State Highway 5 between Rotorua and the Waikato. I think, he's gone. It's Councillor, Councillor Downard came when we sort of turned the first sod on that fence several years ago. And that's actually working really well, but I say it can be costly because we were running it along the side of a state highway, and you've got to start to get traffic management in place when you are operating on a highway, and it pushes the costs up hugely. But if you're just retrofitting a boundary fence, relatively cheap and works quite well. The other thing that they're looking at doing with it in Kowal is using it as a containment fence and actually sort of starting to divide up the island and work, basically trap everything in an area, work through it, and then keep going. And that way it works really well. And I've got investment in tool development down the bottom there. So we have got some really good, tool development going on. We don't know enough or a lot about wallabies. They're relatively unknown to us. So if you look at how long we've been and how much money we've pumped into researching for possums, it's been decades and decades. We've only really just started to look into these guys. So, it is, I suppose you've got to ask the question, do we have the tools to be able to achieve eradication is one of the things. And that's one of the things that researchers are looking at, new tools as well as part of the program. Slide, Patrick. Oh, and now this is when you get wallabies at saturation point. So that is a photo in the core area. So that's I think it's Rede Whakaitu or somewhere like that, or Rotoiti. So that's what we're up against. Is that, and that's what's, so this is what's driving that, you know, that the movement out of that containment area.
Is that
pretty
the picture
substantial.
of carp in the
And when I'm
underwater?
and they're not, yeah, they're not rabbits. Those are all wallabies. And when I'm saying, you know, you could not only are they eating the grass, if they're spoiling that grass and stock aren't going to feed on it, then, you know, that farmer's got a bit of an issue. So that's the wallaby program. That's what we're up against. I think the invasion curve for this one's coming up for where we are in the Waikato. We're not actually too bad. So numbers in the Waikato, you know, we've been shooting a lot. We've been doing a lot of big aerial operations. But yeah, it wouldn't take much for it to, you know, if we took the foot off the throat for it to go the other way.
Why aren't we looking at, with all these pests, you know, include possums, rats, rabbits, the whole lot, genetic engineering, you know, why are you looking at GE on them? It just seems like it's the obvious answer.
Yeah, but it doesn't always go down well. I mean, even with koi carp, when we looked at the herpes virus, you know, it wasn't really something that was picked up. We didn't want to know about you know, the introduction of a virus. Genetic modification, it gets into the same sort of arguments, well, not arguments or discussions. You know, people struggle to get their heads around what it looks like, or what, you know, there's a little bit of, I think, apprehension about where it could go as well.
There was a lot of research done on what are the options for possums.
Yep.
A lot of it went dead ends.
Yeah.
For a range of reasons.
What happened to Khaleesi virus?
It got released.
Got released. No. Crossing all over.
So it was, you know, I don't know if you guys remember, but it was illegally.
It was illegally released.
Yeah. And I think when they introduced it, they also introduced a strain from Korea, which is more aggressive and less fatal, but it essentially inoculates the population.
Basically, Ben, all it did was allow the wild rabbits to come and kill your own little rabbits that your kids got on the front lawn. They only had to come along and sniff them, and they were dead.
It's still, you'll still see it spike every now and then. Still, occasionally you'll see, you know, but it's.
Saying is that somebody released almost the counter antidote at the same time by mistake.
Yeah, actually. So the other one is just our rook program, and I'll race through that just as fast, but it's probably an interesting one for you because you're probably sitting here going, hey, I don't really see any.
Yep, but I've seen heaps of times. But
because it's you know, we've put a lot of work into it. So yeah, look, member of the crow family, they are highly intelligent, which does make them hard to kill. Missed in tall trees too, which is also challenging. So that's where your control starts to, you know, it's hard when you've got them on a ridge in really tall eucalypts. But I'll get into that a bit later about how we do it. And then, you know, also, you know, outside of the breeding season, they forage for quite a distance. So we sort of do focus our surveillance around that breeding season, because that's when we look at taking, you know, doing the control, but also the foraging in only 1 to 2 kilometres, so you know, got a better chance of finding them. History of rooks, so introduced in, so actually when you look at it, they were introduced as an early form of biocontrol, like Darian's little bugs. The Acclimatisation Society brought them in back in about 1862 to control pasture pests. Probably, if you look at that, by the 1960s, it had failed because numbers got out of control, and then what people sort of started to realise was, oh, they're actually having a major impact on the pasture when they're trying to find these pests. And I've got some photos coming up, you'll see it. There's like mobs of pigs going through, and also they started having massive impacts on cereal crops and maize and that sort of thing, because yeah, they're not stupid birds. And then we had reports when we had them in the Waikato that all, you know, silage stacks are also picking holes in silage stacks to get to the maize, you know, to the maize kernels and that sort of thing. So at about that time, they started their shooting and poisoning campaign. Some of them were done poorly, and that's what created a lot of dispersal throughout the North Island, and that's where I think a lot of our birds came from at the time. When you look at that map on the right-hand side, that's generally where we've had sort of
Maisie's Road.
Yep.
Yep, at least the farm they were on, the bloody things.
So then the map on the right's from last year. You focus on the, I think there's a green dot, if you can see the green dot up there, but hard to see. But we've got, Pyroa, T-Rail and North Taupo at the moment are our current sites. So yeah, it's, recognised as a pest in about 1968, approximately, based on 500 birds. And then declared a pest in the Regional Pest Management Plan in 1980. So the important thing to note with this is that every council put them into their RPMPs. And this is one of the trickier things that we have with the regional sectors. We're all fickle beasts with different politics. But this was one that everybody aligned on. And that's the only way it works. So, we did something here and Auckland wasn't doing it, or the Bay wasn't doing it, it would sort of be a waste of time because we all at that stage had birds. But we all decided to put them into our plans, and everybody took it as seriously as each other. So, and that's why I think the program's been quite successful. So the aim of it for us is to get them down to zero densities. When you look at what we've got left on the map, so sorry, just to take it back, Patrick, those sites, Pyro, we had 2, T-Rail, we had 4 birds, and North Taupo, I think, was 8. We didn't do any control last year because there were no nests to control. So what we think is happening is generally when we do the control, we're controlling nests during breeding when the hens and are sitting on eggs. By doing that, we're creating a sexual bias, right? So we've potentially killed a lot of female birds. What could be left is just male birds. They'll still go through the process of building a nest. They won't lay eggs. We just chuck a drone up, see what's going on in the nest, and then they'll sometimes just move on. If there's egg present, we'll treat. So we're just keeping an eye on things. They just could be male birds, and we just might not have to do anything. They'll die off, and eventually we'll reach that zero density in the next couple of years with a bit of luck. But we'll keep an eye on things. So yeah, why are they a problem? So that's the sort of damage that you're getting, and when you've got large flocks that's in search of pasture grubs. It's just like pigs have been through newly sown paddocks. Emergent sowing cereal crops, they just rip out all the seeds. They know that they know even maize crops. They know there's a seed every 200 millimeters, whatever it is, and they just go along, dig it up, and they get it. They're not stupid. So yeah. Once they know, yeah. So methods of control, ground operations. So that's the DRC on breed with dripping. Only effective in large, when you've got large numbers. We did last effective ground control operation we did was in 1996. I tried one in about 2010, and as you said, it just got I think every duck, chicken, and everything else on it before. No, we got one rock visited, but everything else decided this was great fun, and so we never actually switched to the toxin. We just pre-fed them, everything got fat, and we thought we pulled the pin on it. So yeah, only really effective at large numbers. Then we've getting control targeting nests. And our surveillance networks are really good. So our farmers are really switched on. We've been doing it for a long time. We generally use localized ads and papers, right where we know they are. Put these flyers out. We've got some signs going out around Taupo this season because we're having a bit of trouble finding them down there. So we get some good feedback out of our farming communities. And this is what keeps the program costs down. So it's one. So I've got a slide with it coming up. Is that we had the whole program contracted out in the early 2000s. We took a lot of surveillance back in house because we found that the contractors probably weren't taking it as seriously as we would. So we get staff are doing all of the surveillance out there driving around looking for birds for weeks and weeks and weeks, and then we just get a helicopter in and control the nests if the nests need doing. So we're only looking at a $40,000 a year program to do it. So it's not too bad in that respect.
Is drones a more effective method than helicopter?
It is something we're going to be looking at this year, because the trouble is that, and you'll see. The question is, can drones actually do the job? Because what rooks will do, they're not stupid. Back before we started controlling them, you used to be able to control the nests, the ladder. When they thought, hang on a minute, this isn't working, they moved all their nests right up to the top of trees. Then we started to do the nest poisoning. They've moved all the nests down into into the trees. So whether we can get a drone in there or not will be interesting. But you'll see in the next photo the old dope on a rope. The guy on the end of the rope that we drop in. He has to get in there and clamber around in the top of a tree to try and poison the nest. And sometimes it's not that easy. So but you're right. We will explore it because drone delivery is going to be a lot cheaper than helicopter delivery if it's effective. But we still will have a helicopter on standby. So yeah, I mean that's just how we go about it. That strap that you see going around the belly of the helicopter belly band basically holds the guy to the machine. There's criteria around. There's a guy that sits in that seat and pulls a pin on that. If there's an issue, you've got to be able to jettison your load. Yeah, there's a CAA requirement that says if your engines fail, that you have to be able to jettison, and it's at a certain height. I mean, it's almost a survivable. I think it's like 200 feet.
Got a parachute.
You have interns in your program?
Yeah, we have a lot of people lined up to do it. But because it's amazing to watch. Like he's hanging a couple 100 feet below that machine and loving life. So yeah, dope on a rope. Hey, yeah. So it's that's how it's done. But quite cost effective. Quite costly as you'd imagine.
But with the drone, you could presumably learn from what Ukraine's doing with a submachine gun attached to your thing on your side.
No, there has been one developed to be able to get the toxin into nests, but just whether or not it's long enough.
You have to do toxin. You couldn't just shoot them from the drone.
We have shot them before. So we had a season where the belly band. So what happened? We used to actually have a chain that hung off the cargo hook. Used to be all we used to use, and then it got banned. So what happened overseas is that because all it is to release that chain is there's a switch on the cyclic, and all it takes is a helicopter pilot's knee to flick that switch, and your dope on the rope's gone, and your chain's gone. And so but the helicopter company that makes the cargo hook went, we did not make it's all around the Americans and liability. They said we did not make our cargo hook for human slung loads. No, can't be done anymore. So we had a season where we couldn't do any work until we got that belly band system in from the States, where we shot from the helicopter into the rookeries. Actually worked quite well. Because it's one of those things that we can't afford to take the pressure off.
Drone could presumably shoot.
Set up for that.
Yeah.
And then some of the other things we've used as ladder traps, you'll see it there. It's a British technique. You basically big cage. We bought some birds up from Taihape, hand reared them as call birds, chucked them in this thing and chucked them out in the out around sites, so hoping that they'd lure birds and all that sort of thing. The birds walk along that ladder. It's got a gap in it, and they supposedly jump in. But we've got to try these things. Like ground shooting, it just, try shooting up from the ground through nests, but when you actually look at those nests, they're substantial and high, so that never really worked either.
It's not armor plating.
No. And then you've got the one around removal of nest to start breeding. So what we're starting to get is brooks in peri-urban areas, like some of the ones we've got in Pyra, are over a kindergarten. CAA and MOH aren't overly happy about us having a helicopter that close to a house and, you know, all that sort of thing. So yeah, fair enough. So what we do is we'll limb the branch and the nest and hopefully move them onto an area that we can actually take control. Yeah, does work to sort of move them on. So how well are we doing? So you'll see, you know, as far as it's the graphs tracking, 2021 was obviously COVID year. We didn't do anything during COVID. And then 2025, whilst we had the birds present, we couldn't, you know, and there were some nests built. Like I said, they didn't actually lay any eggs in those nests. So we didn't treat anything at site. So it'll be interesting to see what happens this season. But as the graph, you know, graph goes, it's looking pretty good that we're on track to achieve that zero density in the not too distant future. Auckland are already, Northland are already there, Auckland are already there. We're close to it. The bay's probably close to zero density. I think we've got Hawke's Bay and Horizons, about the only other councils that have still got a bit of an issue that need to work with. Taranaki's also looking pretty good, and most of Wellington. So really important that our regional neighbours keep the pressure on their programs. Otherwise, all the effort that we're put into ours will just become undone pretty quick. None in South Island. They've eradicated them. I think they ran the last one down with a helicopter and exhausted it.
Will you look at magpies as well, or
Magpies we've got in the plan as a landowner responsibility. If somebody, you know, if there are kids getting dive bombed and attacked on their way to school, the last thing you want is a kid to swim out in front of a car. So we can actually direct the landowner to undertake control of magpies on their properties during that territorial period that they have. And so, and yeah, the invasion curve, you know, we're almost there. You know, we're right down to the bottom. Whereas, and we've probably dragged it down from the you know, the right hand side over the, you know, few decades that we've been doing this, to be honest. That is it. I told you I was going to fly through it. With that.
Thank you.
Any questions?
I don't have a question, but I've got a comment about the magpies. We had a lot of magpies shooting them, and quite good. And my wife got involved on the act as well, and she decided she can grab 22 and shoot them from a car, which was really good, and she was quite a good shot. And then one day she was lining up a magpie, and just coincidentally, at the same time, some young fella decided that he needed to have a comfort stop at the end of the hedge. He jumped over the hedge, over the gate and the end of our hedge line, and he was only about 100 metres from the house, and to relieve himself. And my wife let rip on a magpie, got the magpie, but the guy thought he was going to shoot at him.
You got a visit from the police?
No, he was up and gone real fast.
Yeah, magpies decoy really well, and you can actually build an envelope trap similar to that, where you just got, and they'll yeah, if you got a good call bird on those, they decoy really well.
My mum catches around 150 a year.
Yeah.
With a call bird.
Yeah.
Feeds them on cat food. They love jelly meat. Yeah. They just survive on that. You'll keep them alive for about 3 weeks until you catch your next one. Yeah. If you get a good caller, you keep it. Yeah. But she's also out there every day with her slug gun, and she'll shoot the odd one with the slug gun every once or twice a week. So
that's your dinner.
No, no way. No, they stink. Horrible things. They shit all over your tractors. It's just horrible. Yeah. Well, I think that's cool. That's it for today. Thanks, guys. I don't think there's any more questions. Okay. And we'll when we're finished, we'll move into the other room.
Yeah, and just look back around. So we had a few things up on the whiteboard there. So we've covered COI, and there'll be a discussion paper coming back to yourselves in due course. So I noted Ben to have a chat to Tracy, and I'll make sure that she's aware of that interest. She is. Biocontrol. So I guess we had a chat about a couple of the beetles there and the names they're given. There was a bit of interest in, do we cover everything from a biocontrol perspective?
100% supportive. I've seen what it does, getting rid of thistles and stuff over my way with California And what else does it do? Is it nodders or something? Or
Yes.
yeah, they're like 100%. There's the reduction in spray, and
Yeah.
I think Alicia Broomfield, you did a trial for her in Springdale, and I think that's gone really well. So
What's planned progress? So hopefully we gave a bit of a rundown on how we built the program, how we monitor it, and the kind of progress that we made. And you would have seen the eradication curve got featured in all of our case studies. And look, that's a really important tool because there's so many pests around the place that we need to consider and make decisions about where we put our money. And so that's a really important tool for understanding, what are we trying to achieve, how much do we want to invest, and thinking about the outcomes that we want to achieve as well. So really important.
Yeah, cool.
Um,
Hey, and just
yeah.
on that, when we bring that annual report back through the committee, at the back of it is all our programs, and basically green, it's going well, orange, we've got issues, or red, we're in big trouble. And we're really open about it. So, we have those discussions in the committee around, where are programs that we think are needing something different, not necessary funding. Yeah.
Yeah, and that report coming to you guys in September. Yeah, September.
one thing is becoming quite noticeable is it would be nice that when we're talking to our TAs, what we fund and out of what basis and regional council they get funding from. I'm just getting a little bit annoyed with how Coromandel is always talking about now leaving and going with Bay of Plenty. And I think every time you have that discussion, you should be explaining them how much the region contributes to the Coromandel as a whole. And I don't mean just ICM, but it's in every other, but I think it's something like 10% of the population. You may be getting 30% of the funding at times. So I think you guys need to show that to councillors, that when we're talking with Coromandel, there is actually no benefit going with Bay of Plenty with anything, unless they're going to give them more than what we do now. And I know we've got a councillor from Hamilton that's getting really annoyed to see how much money goes to Coromandel, and now they're talking about leaving. And yet it's Hamilton ratepayers that are funding that. So I hope that's something you look into a bit more in the future, of actually showing how much funding that some of these our outer regions get from the regional council itself.
Yeah, and if you look at this program that we'll talk about today, all these programs, we do a lot of geolocation in terms of where the pests are, where the sites are. We have that. Absolutely. We talked about cost-effective programs, and so you've heard a few examples today. Examples where Turu Kahika, the regional sector, comes together to do one job across the country and do it right, rather than 16 councils doing it individually. You've heard about technology coming into play to help to reduce our costs. You've heard about looking at our mode of delivery as well, whether it's practices, we bring programs in house. We've got a few examples that you've heard about today, and really removing the barriers for the community as well. So looking at actually what we need to do to really get work done on the ground and make it easy. And you've had examples there. And different forms of funding. I guess you particularly heard in the biosecurity space, where the government gets involved in national programs and helps us to do our work. And Patrick touched on the important approach we take these days of building a partnership with our stakeholders, and that's what really the success is reliant on, is a partnership where everyone plays their bit. Hopefully that's covered off a lot of what you're interested in today, but obviously we'll be having ongoing conversations with yourself, Biosecurity, so about it.
You agree, so that was great, and I did enjoy it. Definitely support biocontrol, so what Robbie talked about also, at a root level, and we know the impact of those sort of things on our productivity. Is there an opportunity, and is it council space to get more proactive as well? And I look at things, when I was coming up with the Whanga Merino, when I saw some of the DNA of the fecal matter in the water after high water events, and and I mentioned it then, but getting proactive around things like dung beetles and that, which could take control of another big part of that. And I know, we mentioned koi and stuff like that. If we think about the quality of our waterways, and if we can stop stuff getting in their ways by biocontrol through things like that, and then worry about the other predators that are direct to water, we can actually probably have some major impacts at pretty low cost, you know, and that's why I think, GE and stuff like that, it's got to be considered and reconsidered. See, that's ask it, and talk to iwi, talk to whoever we need to talk to. Say, you know, this is actually for the benefit of everything and everybody, if we can do it safely.
Want to comment on the dung beetle idea?
Well, I know that we were supportive of that program when I used to have the PI team a few years ago in ICM. Yeah, so that team supported research that went behind it and the trial farms and yeah, so
I think my brother's farm was a trial farm for that.
yeah. So this council did support that. Well, and we don't get involved in biocontrol unless it's for the control of a invasive species. But
It's just, I mean, we've got PC1 arriving sometime soon. Farmers may be looking at alternative methods if they're available. Yeah. Have you got any reports on that work that we could forward through to us?
Tracy's
Horizons
Tracy
was most probably
Nielsen.
where to get it from though. I think they were doing all the big trials, weren't they? Yeah. All the major chart, because it wasn't the main organisation that was doing the release down in Horizon somewhere? Pardon?
Yeah, I think so.
Privatised the guy that ran that program for Link, he had his own company.
Oh, okay.
He was on Stephen Sharp
Oh,
a few weeks ago.
was actually. Yeah.
People buy bugs.
Aye.
It's not doing so well.
Cool, thank you.
So we have Alana waiting next door.
Yeah.
Wait at least one person
Goes through.
VR.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
So, okay.
Yep.
So this is the transgender
You're
level.
bringing it.
I'll
You
bring
have
it
to say
next door.
Karakia.
But yeah, so
Right.
I'll close the meeting with Karakia and then we can go forth and
Yep.
and do the VR stuff. Unahia mai te uru tapanui, ke wātea, ke mama, te nākau, te tinana, te hinengaro, e te ala takatū, koe rā, e rongo, kāre ake ki runga, ki a tīna, te huie,
Karakia.
Thank
Yep.
you.